Hello, welcome to Do It Yourself with Wayne. Today we're going to do a video about composting methods. I hear a lot of questions about composting, the different types of bins that you can use, or whether you build your own or you buy something, and the different styles and sizes and stuff as compared to just having a pile. So I want to do this video about the different composting methods that I've been associated with in my years. And I've been an avid composter for probably 35 years now. So I've seen a lot of different types of bins. I've talked to a lot of people about their experiences, and I wanted to share some of that with you. Basically, this bin here is a commercially available bin. That style I'm pretty sure is still available if you wanted it. It doesn't work for me, okay? Because during the summertime, when I mow my yard, I like to compost my grass clippings, and mowing my yard one time will fill that thing up if it will all fit in there. So it just won't handle the volume of compost that I do. But the way it works, you take the lid off, you put your compost inside, you keep it stirred, a little bit of water if it needs it. Then there's a little door here, and you raise it up and you get your compost out of the bottom as it composts down. It also came with a stick for mixing. Now this is not the stick, I've lost mine, I apologize for that. But it was about like this. It had a handle on the top, and down there at the bottom there were two ears that stuck up kind of like that. So when you stuck it down in the compost, they would fold up, but when you pulled it out, they would stick out and help aerate the compost inside the bin. That eliminated the need for you to stir it some other way. I built two of these out of old pickets from a railing around an old deck, and they worked okay. They would hold the volume that I have, but turning the compost was a real chore. I mean, about the only way to get everything out of it was just to turn the thing over. It gets real heavy. It's just hard and awkward to deal with. The thing that works best for me is just a pile. This is what I've done most time over the years, and it works best. If your pile's not too big, all you need is a pitchfork or a fork like this. You could use a shovel if that's what you've got. But the main thing is you got to keep it turned on a regular basis for it to work well. Now, I've got a small John Deere tractor. It's a 1025R. And that's what I turn my compost with now. But for years, I didn't have that. 30 years ago, I had a tractor, and that's what I turned my compost with. And it works great. But the main thing is, for compost, is you've got to keep it aerated if you want it to work well and work quickly. If you take stuff like this and you just pile it up, it will eventually decompose and you can use it, but it takes a lot longer. And it doesn't go through that heat cycle. If you want the heat cycle and the real composting action, you've got to keep it aerated, you got to keep it moist, and it'll do the job. But there's also, I want to talk about the pros and cons of some of the other things that I've seen on the market. I'm going to put a picture up here in the corner of one. It's not the one that my mom had some years ago, but it's like it. It's a barrel, it's got a rod through the middle. You put your stuff in it, screw the lid on, and you can turn it because it pivots on the middle shaft, which sounds like a good idea. But what happens with that is, in time, as your material inside composts down, it doesn't take up much volume and it gets heavy, and all that weight's down in the bottom. And it was a real struggle to try and turn this thing to aerate it properly. I mean, it was really difficult. My mom couldn't do it. And then once you got the stuff in it composted down and you wanted to get it out, it was extremely difficult to turn it upside down to get the stuff out of it. It seemed like a good idea, but it just didn't work well. You've probably seen some that's like a barrel that you roll it, where the barrel just kind of turns like this. If I can find a picture, I'll put it up here in the corner. I should be able to find one. I've never used one of those. They would probably work better for small volumes of stuff. But the biggest thing about compost piles, and I know I've already said it, but you got to keep it aerated. You got to turn it on a regular basis. And on a regular basis, I wouldn't go more than 2 or 3 weeks without turning a compost pile if you were really wanting it to work well. So that's kind of my experience with compost. Like I said, what's right for you depends on you. You know, what works for me may or may not work for you. But don't worry about the containment. Don't worry about a nice, expensive store-bought bin. Do what works for you. You know, if that works for you, that's great. If something like this works for you, that's great. People get old pallets and they build an enclosure to put their compost in. That's fine. What works for you is what matters. What works for me is just a pile. Because of the volume that I have, that's what works for me. So anyway, that's it for my episode here about compost methods. And I would just like to say thank you for visiting Do It Yourself with Wayne, and we hope you have a great day.